In response to the Minister's request, a report has been prepared by the management of the Hunter Area Health Service. Their proposal will be considered by the board tonight and a final copy submitted to the Minister Ron Phillips tomorrow. Based on that information and advice from his department, the Minister is expected to make an announcement next week about the future of health services in the Hunter. It is understood that the board's prime concern is to avoid the closure of a hospital. It has worked for years to produce a role-delineated hospital system. The Mater specialises in oncology, the Royal in orthopaedics, Wallsend in geriatrics and urology. To close one hospital would upset the system as a whole. Last night, about 50 doctors attended a meeting organised by the Hunter Medical Association to discuss problems with the health service in the Hunter.
The main problem is to get over this current hurdle, to get the problems that are the financial problems out of the way, to communicate it with each other and with the public so the people know what's going on, they know whether their jobs are on the line, they know what exactly is going to happen. That's the main problem.
The RTA's Hunter Division covers an area from the Hawkesbury to Karura and out to Muswellbrook. A management review of staff numbers is now underway as the local division tries to meet its share of workforce reductions. Employees from road crews and traffic controllers through to engineers and secretaries are under review. The RTA employs about 350 people in the Hunter Division, which is slightly higher than the state average. It's therefore not unlikely that this region will also be asked to bear a higher proportion of the anticipated cuts. The news has appalled local governments. Cessnock Mayor Marie Callaghan arrived at NBN Studios this afternoon, furthering her campaign for a place on the NRMA Council. After once again travelling over some of the worst roads in the state, she was dismayed by the news of RTA cutbacks. The job reduction schedule has already started in Sydney with motor registry staff cutbacks, but a spokesman said the Hunter and Central Coast's 42 registries aren't expected to be greatly affected. A freeze on new roadworks has caused concerns for the future of the Pacific Highways upgrading program. However, the spokesman said there were numerous projects now underway the length of the highway, which would continue.
Mark Sargent may be the most wanted man in rugby league. 7 Winfield Cup clubs, including the Knights, have made him their first priority for 1992. The latest to join the fray are the Gold Coast Seagulls, who made a lightning visit to Newcastle yesterday, chequebooks in hand.
It's flattering in a way, but certainly very confusing to have so many clubs chasing you. But you've got to give everyone a hearing and see what they've got to offer.
Sargent spoke with Knights officials again today and is said to be close to signing a new contract. The deal could hinge on the Kangaroo star being offered the position of Knights Development Officer, a job currently held by caretaker coach David Waite.
That's something I'm interested in looking at, and if I can secure that job, it'd certainly be a big step toward staying with the Newcastle club.
Applications for the coaching position closed today with 17 hats in the ring. Those known to be among the contenders include former Wests coach John Bailey, ex-Seagulls coach Bob McCarthy, Queenslanders Ross Strudwick and Ross Hendricks, English great Brian Lockwood, Raiders star Dean Lance, and an 11th hour inclusion, former Illawarra coach Ron Hilditch.
Ron's contacted us and we're waiting on a bit more information from Ron, and he's one of the total of 17 that have expressed interest in the position.
David Waite was always considered by insiders to be favourite to clinch the coaching position. With Mark Sargent's considerable weight now added to his cause, those odds can only shorten dramatically. Bruce McKenzie, NBN News.
Created a furrow through here, and it's ended up.
The Minister gave the board until midday today to devise a rescue package. After many hours of deliberation last night, it has recommended that all hospitals in the Hunter remain open. However, 500 people will need to take voluntary redundancy packages. This would save the service $15 million. Will anyone be retrenched?
The board is very much against retrenchment. We've always held that view because of the socio-economic circumstance the Hunter finds itself in. We don't wish to increase the dole queues in the Hunter, which has already got too high a dole rate compared with the remainder of the state. We will be offering at a later date early retirement packages.
The Royal Newcastle would be transformed into an orthopaedic institute and its other services reduced.
We think that services such as casualty at Royal Newcastle should be looked at to see if it can be relocated to John Hunter and still serve the people.
The Wallsend Hospital would specialise in elective surgery and geriatric care, but other services would be scaled down.
The services available at Wallsend Hospital, particularly in acute surgery and acute medicine, may well be relocated to John Hunter, but that is yet to be decided.
The rest of the John Hunter Hospital would be opened, but the catering facilities and number of administrative staff would be reviewed. The Hunter Area Health Service is running over budget by $500,000 a week. This cash flow problem has meant additional funds are required to pay creditors.
We have asked for additional funds to cover those outstanding creditors' requirements about 10 days ago. We hope that the additional funds will be forthcoming from the department in the near future.
A spokesperson for the Minister says he has received the board's proposal. It will be considered and a decision on the future of health services in the Hunter is likely next week. Jane Anderson, NBN News.
As one of Australia's leading Christian campaigners, Fred Nile is rarely out of controversy. In Newcastle today, working with Call to Australia party officials, Mr Nile demanded a complete ban on pornographic videos and magazines in the Hunter, saying they incite sex attacks. The ban includes so-called soft porn magazines, now commonplace in petrol stations and supermarkets.
Do you want to stop the attacks on women and children? If the answer is yes, clean up the material that incites that encourages it, and then you'll see a drop in the attacks.
And that's pornography?
That's right, that's pornography.
The Call to Australia party is working to regain its strength after nominating 43 candidates for the state election and only winning 2 seats. The party owes $100,000 in expenses, forcing Mr Nile to put his Sydney home on the market. It's believed the gay movement is keen to buy the property. Fred Nile isn't impressed.
I take that as a bit of tongue-in-cheek, it's a bit a humorous proposition. I certainly will make sure that they never buy my home, I'll tell you that. I'll never sell it to one of those particular characters.
This weekend, the university's Great Hall has been transformed into a bookworm's heaven. More than 80,000 titles are on sale, with an alphabet's worth of subjects, from Australiana to zoology. Among the piles of pages, there's even some rarities, including this 1928 Newcastle Street Directory. Thousands have already attended the fair, all consumed with a passion for the written word.
People who love books, they don't fit into any category, they just any of the spectra of the community, really.
The book fair will continue until next Saturday.
The Newcastle waterfront was the place of pace today as a sea of runners made a spectacular start. For the serious athlete, the 10-kilometre course offered a real challenge, while the not-so-fit could stretch out over the 5K circuit. The slog up through King Edward Park proved the most difficult stage, and a gusting headwind made things even tougher. For some, it was a labour of love, but the front runners were a picture of determination and they set a cracking pace. The better short course competitors crossed the line first, obscuring the tussle for the lead in the main event. Stephen Atkins emerged from the pack to claim a shock win.
From a triathlon background, so the running was always my strength, so I thought I'd try just running for a while, see how I went.
Scott Weavers was second, with David Anderson third. Mark Stanborough won the 5-kilometre event.
Police say the 29-year-old was driving along the Buckets Way from Taree to Gloucester at about 4 o'clock when the crash happened. The Taree man failed to take a corner in his late model sedan and careered into a clump of trees. He was killed instantly. Police say although the stretch of road at Purfleet near Taree has been the scene of several accidents, it's not considered a black spot. The cause of this fatal crash is not yet known and investigations are continuing. Medical and counselling staff involved with caring for the Hunter's AIDS patients have been preparing a draft submission to go before the Anti-Discrimination Board. The Hunter Immunology Unit's director, Dr. David Sutherland, says the submission was prepared in response to a call by the board and is intended to win a better deal for the region's AIDS patients.
We're seeking a very clear statement that people with HIV and AIDS are entitled to exactly the same as everybody else, no more and no less. And just because the area or a specific hospital has a major budget crisis, that is no excuse to pick on one particular service.
Dr. Sutherland says the timing has nothing to do with the enormous financial problems besieging the Hunter Area Health Service.
Our timing was dictated by the Anti-Discrimination Board seeking submissions. Now, the deadline for those submissions is the 1st of August. We had absolutely nothing to do with the timing.
Also of concern to Dr. Sutherland, the future home of the AIDS unit.
In limbo, unfortunately. We're in an unsatisfactory position right now, but I can see no better alternatives in the offing.
At the moment, the unit is in the Royal Newcastle Hospital. It was expected to move to the Mater, but with a state government report into the service yet to be released, where the unit's new home will be is uncertain. Scott Bevan, NBN News.
The game began with a spate of penalties. This one saw Mark Mulligan open the scoring for Lakes United. The Lions roared back when Dean Mikalski seized a high bomb and Brett Winkler made it 6-2. Clever half Darren Forward worried the Seagulls' defence whenever he handled, and he was unlucky not to score after this effort. At the other end, Gary Bray ran past an injured Darren Wood to equalise. Lakes led 8-6 at half-time, and after a string of puzzling penalties from referee Tony Hardy, it was still their way 10-8. Souths declined a penalty shot to look for a try. Brad Guy justified the decision. At 14-10 it was anyone's game. Then Richard Jones made it all his own. Final score 22-10. A great day for the Country Player of the Year.
The year's just getting better. We really needed to pull out a big one today, and the players, they did it for themselves really, but it was a great team effort.
And Until a week and a half ago, 25-year-old Peter Perry spent 5.5 hours a day, 2 days a week, hooked up to a dialysis machine. This was the last time he visited the hospital for this treatment before his kidney transplant.
Clean as mustard, ready to go. It'll be great. I have my tennis racket and shoes waiting.
There is no greater gift than the gift of good health. Peter has been given a new chance for better health by a relative who agreed to donate one of her kidneys. This is in marked contrast to the majority of patients who must wait for years for an organ from a donor who is brain dead. 9 days after the operation, it seems to have been a success.
Terrific, much better. I don't feel unwell all the time, so great.
While doctors are happy enough with Peter's recovery to allow him to go home, they're not so optimistic about the health of the transplant unit itself.
In the Hunter area, it is going well, our results are good, but we can do a lot more. And we will be able to do a lot more if there are more organ donors. We have to remember as a community that transplantation of organs is dependent upon gifts.
People may become organ donors by signing the consent section on their driver's licence. Jane Anderson, NBN News.
Professor Brian English has been studying marriages and the family for 15 years. In the early 80s, he found there were not enough men to go round.
At that period in Australia's history, we had the largest number of women compared to men that we'd ever had in the marriage age groups. And in fact, for women between 30 and 40, there were about 130 women in Australia for every 100 eligible men.
But as predicted, the situation has vastly improved.
We've now got equal numbers of men and women in the marriageable age group, if you take 45 as the top of the marriage market. But it's even a bit better than that in one sense for women under 45, because men consider themselves still to be in the marriage market up to about age 59.
According to Professor English, women can thank increased immigration and the end of the baby boom for the increase in the number of eligible men.
There's a fair few nice ones out there for all of us, I think.
But if you're an eligible, successful, intelligent and attractive woman over the age of 45, the outlook is not so good.
Women go for a certain type of partner which tends in Australia to be somebody a bit older than themselves, a bit better educated, a bit more successful. And men seem to go for women a little bit younger, a little bit less educated and so on than they are. So you finish up with, as it were, your best women unmarried and your worst men unmarried.
And if you think the situation overall is good now, according to Professor English, the future looks even better.
Stable marriages, more marriages, because in tough competition men tend to get a wife if they can and hang on to her, slightly lower divorce rate, and a period of, according to statistics anyway, a period of family stability for the next, as we come up to the next century.
Shortly after the state election, the government placed a freeze on capital works expenditure. The minister announced no new projects would be started this year and all available funds would be directed towards maintenance and the completion of existing roadworks. But it's yet to be announced exactly how much fat will be trimmed from the state's capital works program and what projects will be placed in jeopardy. NBN has what is claimed to be an RTA interdepartmental memo. It clearly states the RTA is proposing to cut around $28 million from this year's works program and $120 million over the next 5 years in the northern region. A spokesperson for the minister denied any such plans have been considered, saying an official decision on the budgetary cutbacks would not be made until August or September. Although the completion of Swansea Bends was not listed on the memo, the minister's spokesperson said this is a project which would be funded. Jodie McKay, NBN News.
There's no shortage of flex appeal in Charlestown. In fact, Jamie Roberts and Marina Hicks have just returned from Noumea, where, along with gym mate Sharon Wheeler, they won 3 of the 4 Oceania titles up for grabs.
No, it was fantastic. It really was. We all trained hard, all trained together. It was really, really good.
Trainer Greg Williams says there's no real secret to their success, just plenty of hard work. It's a simple but highly effective formula.
Discipline with diet and training. The 2 girls that won and the guy that won, all they basically do is just train a bit harder and diet a bit stricter than anyone else.
The end results might look impressive, but they were achieved only after months of muscle-building monotony. The Oceania trifecta was a real team effort.
It's a lot easier when you've got someone that you train with that's got the same interest in competing and everything. It gives you motivation to get down to the gym and train hard. Doing it by yourself would be very hard. You just wouldn't get there.
It was a low-key departure for the 20 officers of Newcastle Police District. They'll travel to Grafton, where they'll begin duties from tomorrow to back up the 40 police already taking part in an uneasy standoff with logging protesters at the Chulundi State Forest. Police say the reinforcements will further hamper the logging protesters, who've also increased their numbers over the past few days.
I think what has been happening up there is that when the police and the forestry workers move out in the afternoon, the protesters move back in and regain the ground that they, if you like, have lost during the day. They then become entrenched overnight, and we found that the police have to virtually start again the next morning.
Police at Grafton say the Newcastle contingent is the biggest single reinforcement unit, but another 40 police are being assembled throughout the northwest region to bring police strength up to about 100 by Sunday. At present, logging protesters number about twice that figure. Police insist the increase isn't provocative and the mood between protesters and officers remains cordial. In the meantime, the Newcastle district is short of 20 police.
We can rearrange duties, rearrange rest days. What you find is that the police that are going up there will defer their rest days until they come back, and I'm sure that we can adequately cover any situation that might arise.
The reinforcements are due back in Newcastle on August 14 or earlier if the protesters disperse. Tom Hilston, NBN News. "200 children from Tyers Hill schools swept into the park armed with trowels and stakes to plant a belt of trees along the park's perimeter. The children are already well drilled in the art of making a garden grow thanks to a planting program at their school.
We're planting school gardens, and each class has a school garden out in the playground. And we look after it, and we have various plants in the gardens as well.
So you're taking that sort of skill out into the community?
Yeah.
Principal Judith Carley said the planting gave the children an opportunity to play a bigger role in the greening of their suburb.
And it's part of a program that we're operating at school, and it's part of our school plan, and we hope that by bringing the kids out into the community, they'll learn to look after the community and feel part of it.
The mass planting was organised by the Throsby Landcare Group with the help of State Soil Conservation Service funding and plants donated by Newcastle City Council. The Fire Brigade also took part, bringing local swamp creature Murky Troyd along to help them water the saplings. For the youngsters, the day was fun, but the message wasn't lost. Is this important to you?
Yeah.
And why is that?
Oh, well, it's good for the environment. I just live up there.
So you come down here and have a look at it from time to time?
Yeah.
Why is it important to the environment to have all these trees planted?
Because it helps the environment.
How's that?
Because it's healthy.
Do you think the park will look better now?
Yeah.
And after a hard morning's planting, what better than a sausage sizzle hosted by the Lions Club?